Right.
We're not live yet.
We're live on StreamYard. Good morning.
Are we? Because I'm not live on my end.
Here we go. All right, we'll hit it on.
All right, I guess we're live or we're not live. I don't know. My computer's not showing that we're live, but Stephen, you're showing we're live?
We're live, baby. Hit Instagram too.
All right. Well, anyway, it's another week, another what the F happened. And this morning has been a lot of what the F with computers. I'm having nothing but technology problems. But you know what? That's going to lead right into some of the news that's been going on and some of the problems out there in the world, because that definitely is what this show is all about. This is a show where we rant, we rave, and we argue about what's going on in the economy. So we're going to get right back at it. We got Instagram streaming live. We'll be back after this. All right. I don't know if that was spotty for everybody else, but this is what the F happened, where things just don't work. I'm just kidding. Anyway, today we're going to get into the news. We're going to get into some of the things happening. Like when I was out in Bahamas, a short little hike across the ocean is a place called Cuba. And our Russian friends decided to send some ships and a nuclear submarine to port or to dock in Cuba. I don't know what's going on, because now Russia and North Korea just signed a pact, and also we're going to get into that. On top of that, you got all sorts of going on in the political landscape. You got things going on in the business landscape. You got the market setting all-time highs. I mean, that just makes sense, right? Because everything's perfect, hunky-dory, and the economy is just raging upward, and there's nothing wrong. Stephen, I don't know about you, but it seems like there's a lot of things wrong. So where should we even start?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. You know, I was listening to a financial show this week, and they were talking about how calm the markets are right now. Just kind of everything's just kind of chilling, you know, phasing through. I get texts here and there. Oh, crypto's dumping, crypto's taking a hit right now, which is to be expected in my opinion. But the markets are just kind of strumming along right now, kind of around that all-time high. You know, they pulled back a little bit and just kind of chilling up there. And they were saying times of market calm is when it gets people really nervous. It gets investors, it gets these hedge fund managers really nervous about what's about to come. And you pair that with the fact that, you know, like your video you put out on YouTube recently, Chris, and if you haven't seen it, you go check it out. But where, you know, every time there's a major presidential election in this country, the markets immediately dump afterwards. So we start looking at it and putting all these little pieces together, and it starts to make me really worry right now, Chris. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, that video I did on YouTube really explains, you know, the last 5 presidential elections, and it explains the markets before and the markets after. Now, before, they sort of mimic what you're seeing here. The markets are usually really good. I don't know if it's manipulation, speculation, or just what it is, but the markets are setting new highs in a time when, if you go out and you talk to people, just average people, you have discussions with them about how everything's going financially, it ain't good. If they tell you the truth, that is. Most people right now, in this is fact, you can look it up, most people are living off credit cards. Hence why this country's credit card debt is literally almost a straight line up. We've also done YouTube videos on that, and we've covered that on this show. So if people are living on debt, if everything costs more, including groceries in some cases being double what they were just a few short years ago, like, how can the market keep setting new highs? Well, I mean, then you can kind of dive in, which we've done, and we've talked about the Magnificent Seven, which is, you know, NVIDIA is in there. So I don't really even, I almost feel like that's the only one you need to talk about anymore is NVIDIA, because that one has literally, from a market cap standpoint, just exceeded and just passed Microsoft as the largest company, largest market cap of any company out there. The amount of market cap NVIDIA has exceeds, I think, and it's either almost exceeding or it has exceeded the entire sovereign wealth of the European nations. And I'm speaking a little bit out of line there, but I think you all understand. I'm just trying to do a comparison to show you how big NVIDIA has gotten. but is it real? Are the fundamentals there to back NVIDIA's growth? Or is NVIDIA's growth largely due to the speculation all around AI and what AI is going to be? And we all know AI is going to be a part of the future, for good, bad, or indifferent. It's going to be a part. But does that part really relate to the market cap that NVIDIA is sitting at? And fundamentally, does NVIDIA actually look good on paper? I don't know. We'd have to give Warren Buffett a call to say, hey, what are you thinking of NVIDIA? But Warren Buffett's selling everything. Right, Stephen? I mean, we just saw not too long ago, Warren Buffett is sitting on more cash than he's ever sat on. He just unloaded a huge chunk of Apple, but Apple's in the news every day as being like, the next AI is going to be Apple. Apple's going after NVIDIA, and there's all this stuff, but yet Warren Buffett's selling, and everybody else, all the wealthy folks are selling when everybody else is buying. Something doesn't make sense. This is like when you walk into a dog kennel, that little smell you get, that's called shit. And that's, I think, what this is a lot of. 3.34 trillion, he's saying. You there, Stephen?
Yep.
So what are your thoughts on this? I mean,
I'm here. Yeah. I mean, I what you're saying is 100%. It's wild to see, kind of that reaction by people. But, one of the things we've talked a lot about is how jobs have really held things up. And, because of the jobs and, everybody can work right now, it's kind of keeping things going. And once we start to lose the jobs, that's when we might really start seeing some trouble occur. We've been talking about that for a while. And, we just had a jobs report come out, for May, and it showed, all these jobs were created in the country. But what's wild about it, and you see all these headlines, jobs, everything, everybody's working, it's all good, all these plus job creation and all this. But when you dig into the numbers, it's pretty amazing to see the actual breakdown of what that looks like. It said this last jobs report, they were saying, it was all these positive numbers, but in reality, it's a lot of part-time jobs. It's a lot of like foreign-born workers, as they call it, like immigrant type work and things of that nature. And that goes right in line with, the headlines, everything's great, the economy is doing awesome. But then you talk to real life people actually living in the United States, and most of them say they're struggling right now. It's tough to, they're living paycheck to paycheck. And when we look at the numbers, and I'll pull up some data in a minute here, but when you look at saving rates, they've collapsed. When you look at credit card usage, it's skyrocketing. When you look at credit card delinquencies, they're starting to really ramp up right now at a hockey stick pace. So we see all these headlines, everything's great, but when you actually dig in and look at reality, it seems to be the opposite. And in an election year, we're going to just see more and more and more of this kind of disinformation, call it what you want to call it, propaganda to try and get, the right person elected. So just something to keep an eye on. Whatever you read, just try and read a few more levels deep, and it might paint a little bit different picture. And we can dig into some of that.
Oh man, well said. And thank you for doing that. Your thoughts are a little bit more collected than mine this morning. Right before we went live on this show, my computer took a dump. I lost the monitor. I couldn't get on. It's just, so thank you for really piecing that together, because that's exactly it. It's disinformation, it's misinformation, and it's just everybody's employed. And here's the thing, when you've got low unemployment like we do right now, we've had pretty low unemployment since we came out of the pandemic, but that sort of makes sense. The country, pretty much the world, was shut down for, let's call it a year, but in certain parts of the country, like New York, where I'm at, it was more than a year, completely shut down. No one going to work unless it was essential. But then they open everything back up, and then unemployment checks run out and the easy money ends. Of course, everybody rushes back. So not only that, there was an extra $5.2 trillion. I mean, no big deal. I mean, it's only $5.2 trillion that was kind of floating around. So that creates a lot of excess money, in people's pockets. That makes a lot of excess money in companies' pockets, because they could borrow money really easily and at a very low rate. But that's all changing now. Money is not easy anymore, and rates are definitely not low anymore. So all these debts that these big corporations took out, and all this corporate debt that they have, and I'm not talking to individual debt yet, all of that's going to eventually sunset or come off the cliff, and those loans are going to reset. I've already seen it in my real estate portfolio. We've had 3 loans, mortgages, reset. And we went from 5% to 7.5. What does that do to your mortgage payment? Well, it changes it a lot. But not only that, banks are way more stringent on lending right now. So it's not like it's just easy money or cheap money. So all these things that have led to the economy being where it's at, led to unemployment numbers being where it's at, are all starting to come to an end. We just are not seeing it yet because it's a lagging indicator. We're not going to see it yet. We'll probably see it at the end of this year. We'll definitely see it in 2025. You're already seeing it. You're just not hearing about it because it's an election year. Why would you want to put bad news out there, right? When the media companies are all owned by the same people and they're all driving the same agenda. Do you remember, Stephen, not to go into this too much, but do you remember when there was a lot of videos out there on social media showing all the different medias like CNN and CNBC? They literally went across the board and they would show like the newscasters all talking, but they were all telling the exact same story. It was almost like this person was saying the same story as this person and same as this one. So you tell me who's running the show there and what they're driving. And it's disinformation. It's misinformation, which I don't know. I mean, it just is what it is. You know, you got to keep reciting the Serenity Prayer, which my mother was nice enough to get this for me. And any of you that don't know the Serenity Prayer, here it is right there. It says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, which is pretty much everything we just talked about, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I just can't think of another time that I've been alive, at least for 46 years, where that right there was as true and important as it is right now.
Yeah, and I mean, we just saw several examples of that over the weekend, actually. So Joe Biden's been out there and, different events. He was with Barack Obama and some people. He was at, overseas at some events. And there was maybe 3 different videos that came out. One of them when he was with the skydivers and seemed kind of a little lost, so to say. There's another one he was on stage and seemed to freeze up for about 8 seconds, kind of not move. And then Barack had to come over and grab his hand and just kind of, hey, we were supposed to go this way, and lead him off. And then there was another one of them where he was just kind of talking and just started mumbling and nobody really knew what he was saying and kind of just went around for about 30 seconds. It was really, really bizarre. And then Obama was just kind of like, oh yeah, what he said, didn't know how to react. And so like we watched these videos and they were released without any editing, the full clips. And then we got all of a sudden the next day, every single major news outlet, every Sunday morning show, every headline was RNC sharing edited clips and they called them not deep fakes, but they came out with a new word, Chris. They're calling it cheap fakes, because I guess they're saying they don't show the whole clip of the video. That leaves out context, but you can go watch all 3 of these videos in full context, the full videos. And if you still try to defend that, I'm going to call that propaganda, not mis or disinformation. You're just straight lying at this point. So
let's
just
do
3
something.
prime examples this weekend alone of that is crazy.
Let's do something fun. So I've got a timer here. So for any of you that don't know the magnitude of 8 seconds of silence, just imagine me and Steven are doing this show and all of a sudden we stop talking. Now I'm going to hit start and I want you to know how long 8 seconds is. 3, 2, 1. Bingo. 8 seconds. Was that uncomfortable? Was that weird? Were some of you like, what's going on? Did they freeze? What's happening? Our president froze and couldn't talk for 8 seconds. Anyway. Cheap. What is it called? Cheap. What is it?
Cheap fakes is the new word this weekend.
Cheap fakes. So anyway, yeah, make America great again. Someone said on TikTok, which is interesting that came in from TikTok. So thank you, Jim, for posting that. I think we all know, and I don't think we need to repeat it, what has to happen. But the question is what is going to happen in November? And we vowed that we were going to talk politics, but the social media platforms don't like us to talk politics. So I'm going to move this discussion to something else that is political but not political, and that has to do with Russia and North Korea. I don't know how any of you feel about Russia and North Korea, but they just signed a partnership deal that includes mutual defense pact. And that's coming straight out of the horse's mouth, Mr. Putin. Russia and North Korea have signed a comprehensive strategic partnership agreement, which includes military and defense collaboration. It comes from President Putin, received a warm welcome from, however you say the North Korea dude, in over 20 years. Experts and officials warn that North Korea would likely try to gain support for its nuclear weapons program. Oh, that doesn't sound so good. In return for supporting Russia's war in Ukraine. And if any of you have been living under a rock, let me bring you up to speed a little bit. The U.S. In this administration has been heavily funding Ukraine in this war against Russia, like sending all sorts of money over there. I know a bunch of the money from what I've seen, and this is not a fact, so I want to just make sure I put that disclaimer in there. This is just what I've seen. I don't know if it's fact checked, but it seems that a lot of the money that the U.S. is sending over there isn't making it to the right place. It isn't making it to humanitarian aid, especially in Israel and some of the places there. It certainly isn't making it its way to that, but it certainly is making sure that Zelensky and a lot of the key people over there in Ukraine have really nice houses. Because there was a thing that I saw that showed all their homes. Man, oh man. I'm just saying, like, who's funding those houses? I don't know. I'm just calling it out, put it out there. It just doesn't seem right, but I don't know what's going on. I mean, is this the start of World War III? I don't like saying that. I don't even want to put that into the universe, but it just doesn't seem like things are lining up and working the right way. I mean, Russia sending, that ship and the nuclear sub over to Cuba. I mean, yeah, I know it was just, they're just doing their routines, but is that just saying, hey, we're here, we're not far from you. Hi. I don't know. What is your take on that, Stephen?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's not good. I mean, I live in South Florida, and there's warships, Russian warships off the coast, and submarines. I mean, it makes you really think when it gets close to home. But what's going on in the Middle East, what's going on with Russia and Ukraine and that whole region. It's the perpetual war machine, the industrial, military industrial complex, and I don't know, man. Something in my opinion has got to change at some point with the way that it all works. It's breaking us. I mean, financially, it's bankrupting the country. I mean, the spending is completely out of control. I mean, if we look at our interest payments alone just surpassed our defense spending, and that's scary. I mean, just to show you that in perspective. Everyone's talking about the annualized interest payments now over $1 trillion. However, the interest on the debt for just May of 2024 is $103 billion. So it's ramping up every month more and more. Debt will grow another $2 trillion or more in the next 12 months. We're already on pace for over $1.2 trillion in annualized payments on the debt within the next few years. Interest on the debt will exceed Social Security and become the largest item on the budget. And we just surpassed interest payments compared to federal defense spending budget. So purple is the interest payments, and you can see it just passed federal national defense spending. So it's like you mentioned earlier with the high interest rates. It's expensive for everybody, and it begs the question: where do we go from here?
Well, I don't know. I guess we could kind of turn over here and talk a little bit about Dennis's comment that he made coming in from YouTube. He said, didn't some banks overseas, reserve banks, lower interest rates, trying to force the U.S. to lower rates also? I call it a fake out. I don't know if they're doing that to get the U.S. to do it, but let's just come over to the news and just, sometimes you can just go to multiple news stations. So I got Yahoo Finance and CNBC, and both are saying the same thing. So let me just tell you a little bit about what's going on. Bank of England set to hold interest rates despite inflation hitting 2% target. So they're holding interest rates there. Then let's see, there's some stuff here about the Fed is playing with fire by not cutting rates, says creator of something, recession indicator. Listen, I hate to say this. One of the best things that probably could happen, it's not going to feel good, but it's a cleansing, would be a recession, because things are so frothy. There's so many problems. Like a recession would flush a lot of that out. But I'm not saying that's a good thing. And I'm not saying I want that. I just think it's an inevitable. But, so let's see. We got another top piece of news here. me go over to your Yahoo Finance. Why the Fed might need to get on with it and cut rates. So you can look at this two different ways. Let me try to get my thoughts on this because I have a lot to say about this. The Fed is vowed to hold rates for longer until inflation gets under control, and inflation comes down to their target of 2%. At the beginning of the year, Powell and the Fed came on and said that they were opening the door for potential of 3 rate decreases this year, of which, we're in June already. They have not dropped rates because inflation has actually ticked up, not down. And a lot of that is stemmed from all the spending, the inflationary pressures, the supply and demand, but the credit cards. So again, you can read a lot of white papers about this, but it all stems back to what Stephen mentioned earlier about unemployment numbers being as low as they are. If people have a job, if people are all working, even if they've got high debts, they can still make those payments and keep things there. But there are cracks in that as well. The default rates have been going up substantially, not just on car loans, but also on credit cards, and you're starting to see it in mortgages. It's things just kind of sometimes are cyclical. So when you look at all of this, and then you got the news and you got the government all pushing the Fed to drop rates, it's really the reason they want to see the Fed drop rates is they want to try to avoid what is almost the inevitable, which is a recession or a slowdown of the economy. The third leg of the stool is employment numbers. When we lose employment numbers, we lose the economy. Point blank. End of story. The Fed, I'm not saying they can't, but I think it would be really foolish for them to print money. Stephen, did you just pop something up on the screen?
I just was showing average mortgage rates currently. I'm just popping up some random rates as you're talking about rates.
But I mean, when you really look at all this, yeah, of course the markets, the crying little baby, which is the stock market in Wall Street, they want the Fed to drop rates, which will keep things higher because it makes money cheaper again. But the Fed knows that will be an inflationary problem. That will create more inflation because people will go out and spend more money. People will buy more homes. People will buy more cars because we're getting used to these higher interest rates. So if they drop them, it's going to stimulate the economy. But why? Riddle me this. Why would you, if you were Jerome Powell, drop rates when we're literally setting records in the markets, when it appears from the surface that the economy is strong? Is there something we don't know? And the answer is absolutely yes. You see, here's what they know. They know, with all their economists over there at the Fed, they know that things are going to fall apart. They know that after the election, they know statistics. They know what's happened on every other presidential election. They know we're going to lose the markets. We're going to lose the economy. So they're saying, these pundits are saying, drop rates now to try to get ahead of this. But the Fed has a very delicate balance. They've created a big problem here. They're trying to solve it. They're trying to still soft land this thing. And I don't think it's possible. I've been saying that for over a year now. It's not going to be a soft landing. We're going to take this. I'm going to say something really bad, but we're going to take this Boeing and we're going to crash this thing right into the ground. No pun intended. I just had to do it. Yeah, I know there's a lot of news out there about Boeing, but the Fed is not going to soft land this thing. Like Boeing is doing a better job, but they need to keep those planes in the air. Did you
I saw a really funny meme about it. They were fixing like a Boeing wing on a plane, and the guy was caulking using caulk, but in a way to make it look like little rivets. And then once like making little dots, and then at the end they just spray painted it silver to look like a weld. I was like, oh, that's so dirty, man. But there's a lot of good ones out there.
Goodness. Listen, I fly all the time, so like that's a really touchy subject even for me. I recently, and it's not in the news, but I recently saw that there was a Southwest flight in Hawaii. And I don't know if we have Mark Perry on, but a Southwest flight was, it's just a short little hop, but they were taking off and the plane fell. It was pilot error. So they said the plane fell 16,000 feet and it was corrected and saved about 400 feet above the sea. I'm sorry, I don't like roller coasters, and I definitely wouldn't want to be on that plane. Can you imagine what that would feel like, a plane falling out of the sky, 16,000 feet? You're watching the ocean come up really fast, and then they save it 400 feet above the ocean? Sign me off. Like, I don't want anything to do with that. All right, so what else do we got here in the news? We got a lot of stuff in the news, but I'm really I'm just picking some of the big ones.
There's good news.
What's the good news?
I'll just share it. So this was from Sunday. So Joe Biden said 0. That was monthly inflation in May. There's more to do still, but this is welcome progress. So I guess we have no inflation anymore, Chris. It's great news.
That was literally from Joe Biden. We have 0 inflation.
Yeah, on Sunday. So great news, guys. Great news.
What?
I'm just
Oh my gosh. Well,
I'm just sharing what the president of the United States of America told me on Sunday.
The biggest problem in America isn't what we don't know. It's what we think we know that just ain't so. Joe Biden. Everybody, Joe Biden. Woo! 0 inflation. Good job, buddy. Good job, Uncle Joe.
Ooh,
Uncle Joe,
let's see.
inflation to 0. Got it. Woo.
In reality, groceries up 20%, 48%, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. How's everybody feeling about those grocery bills, huh? I don't like them. I don't like them at all. Let's see. What else do we got?
I don't think anybody likes them. So if I pull up, let me just show you some of this data we were talking about earlier briefly here. So if we look at just a couple charts here. So credit card total debt versus savings rates. So this is since 2015. The green line is personal savings. So we've talked a lot about this, but it's just really, really, really starting to take off. So as everyone knows, and this red line right here would be credit card debt change, meaning credit card balances. So the revolving debt. And so when we look at savings rates, they ever since 2020, they popped up during COVID. Nobody was spending and all the money was flowing. And since then, there's been a pretty steady decline. But here's what's really frightening. This credit card revolving debt change is just skyrocketing right now. And anytime you see people not being able to spend money and have no money to save and having to put it all on future payments, that typically doesn't lead to very good things. So got to keep an eye on this chart right here. And then there's one other one I wanted to share real fast, just right that goes along with that. So this is percent of credit card balances going delinquent. So people that are charging all that money that I just showed you are now not repaying it. And we can see 30 or more days delinquent and then the 90 plus day trend. And so you can see that really starting to take off quarterly, ever since really 2022 or so. So that's going in the wrong direction as well.
Yeah. Somebody just brought up a good point on TikTok and said, it is possible that, for the month it was 0 inflation, but it shouldn't be very hard to check that. The Fed posts that, and you can just go right to the Fed's website, any white papers, you can see what inflation was. So, Stephen, I don't know if you want to take that challenge on just to see what and I don't know what month was Uncle Joe saying that was 0, but whatever. Just look and see if, the Fed is reporting any 0 inflation, but maybe 0 growth, so 0 increase. But he didn't say that. He said inflation was 0. Inflation was not 0 for any month this year. Maybe inflation didn't grow, so there was 0 growth in inflation, but that's not what he said. So I think we could argue it both ways, not saying good, bad, or indifferent. Somebody mentioned over here, too. They said, who is your...
How do you argue 0? There was 0 inflation in May. How do you argue that?
No, 0. They're I don't know what they're trying to say. It's TikTok, so... They were just saying, somebody said, is this comedy hour? Actually, every day's comedy hour when you're watching the news. So Mind for Power said, well, probably 0 inflation for this month, maybe. Listen, I know that there was not 0 inflation, but I'm just trying to.
We're up, I think it's 3.2 year over year. I mean.
Yeah, so the year is 3.2. So we're moving down, but we're not moving down very fast. And if the Fed were to drop interest rates like the crying baby wants, then that's not going to be good. Inflation is going to keep ticking up like it has been. So maybe there was no growth, last month or whatever month you're talking about in inflation, but that doesn't make inflation 0. That just means inflation didn't go up.
It's a lie. Just like they put out all these things, 272,000 jobs in May, way above expectations. And then you read, we lost 625,000 full-time workers, and they added 286 part-time workers, native-born workers minus 663, foreign-born plus 414. So they just manipulate the numbers to try and show it positive. That's why I said at the beginning, you have to take the headline and then read 3-4 layers deep to find the truth about it, because it's all headline lies at the end of the day. It's crazy.
I love it.
Inflation's not zero. Like, that's silly. Just like 272 jobs is BS.
Dude, you should see the comments coming in from Instagram. It's bonkers. All the medias are lying dog-faced pony soldiers. Oh, some good stuff coming in here. I can't read it all because some of it's got some really foul language, and God forbid we'd get kicked off of TikTok for swearing again. You know, yes, like any organization, economy needs to take a crap too. Absolute. Well said. Like the economy just needs to take a big old dump. That's all. I mean, listen, every once in a while you have a bad meal, maybe you eat too much in the day, and you know what happens. You just gotta lay one in the porcelain god. You know, it's just that's what the economy's got to do. We gotta get that big crap out. Anyway, I like the way that they're putting this. Let's see.
So a couple of things, Chris, if you don't have anything, I just wanted to get your opinion on. So there's one, it came out and we're talking about a new Texas-based stock exchange that's looking to take on NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange. Have you been looking at that at all?
No, I haven't. I saw some stuff about it, but I didn't really know if it was real or not.
Yeah, I was just reading about it a little bit. It's saying, Texas-based stock exchange is in the works. It's backed by BlackRock and Citadel Securities. Texas Group Inc. says it plans to file registration with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission to start operating as a national securities exchange, Texas Stocks Exchange, TXSE, later this year. There are currently over 24 investors behind the effort with $120 million in funding. The new exchange will be based in Dallas as it looks to take on the world famous New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. It'll be fully electronic national securities exchange that seeks to expand access to U.S. capital markets for all investors while providing greater access and alignment for public companies and those seeking access to public capital. I just thought that was interesting.
Hey, everybody that hasn't, if you're new to this is Lazy Cash. He's the star of the show. He only makes an appearance for a couple seconds and then goes off and does his thing, but that was his appearance. So say hi to Lazy Cash.
Hi, Lazy Cash.
I do want to move on to a couple more things. I mean, we got plenty of time here, but let me just hit two more comments over here on TikTok. Yeah. So Megs came in and said, yeah, how many jobs are actual real jobs that people can live off? And then somebody said, how many of these jobs have healthcare and retirement benefits? Same person, sorry, Megs. The answer is probably hardly any of those jobs give you a wage that you can live off in today's economy. And probably none of them have healthcare benefits, and probably very few of them have retirement benefits. And if they do have retirement benefits, there's probably no match. So, yeah, I mean, it's like you can just look at the surface and what they're doing and what they're posting. It is just one big lie. Unemployment numbers and all the jobs numbers, don't even pay attention to them. I'm telling you, like, it's pretty well factual. They are completely manipulated. So when you think everything's going good and everybody's working, sure, maybe they are, but they're not working jobs that can afford to live. Okay. So there's lots of issues out there. Hence why credit cards are going through the roof. Credit card debts are through the roof. It's because people can't afford to live off the wages. So therefore they're living off of the credit card, and the credit card companies will give them the credit lines because they can make the minimum payments. It's just how the system works, folks. Even right here, Mind for Power said, I own a small business and I cannot afford to pay my employees' health benefits. That's a major issue. And it's an issue that Obama, quote unquote, tried solving with Obamacare. Now, I was a financial advisor during that time, and I sold health insurance. We were in the same office as a big health insurance brokerage. I knew a lot about health insurance prior to Obamacare and a lot after Obamacare. And I'll tell you something right now, Obamacare fucked people. No disrespect to any of you that benefit from Obamacare, because my mom does. Okay. So she gets free health. I don't know if it's free, but she gets really inexpensive health care. But for people like Mind for Power here who own a business, or anybody out there doing halfway well, middle, we'll call it the middle class, it fucked every single one of them. Every one of them. Their premiums went up almost immediately by 25%, and it has not slowed down. Health insurance is a major issue. But I got to take this somewhere else. So let's talk about the petrodollar. So any of you that understand some of the things, and I've done so many videos on this, it's silly. The US dollar since really World War II has been what oil is valued in. And oil still is valued in the dollar. I'm just going to read a couple things. Producers and purchasers use petrodollar system to trade crude oil. The petrodollar is not separate currencies. Instead, it is literally the United States dollar. It is the almighty dollar that oil is traded in. Now, recently, Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia, had a contract with the U.S. And the U.S. back in right after we became the world power after World War II, there was an agreement put together with Saudi Arabia where we would protect them. We would provide military protection because we were the strongest in the world. We would provide military protection to Saudi Arabia. That relationship has continued all the way up to now. Saudi Arabia, and I don't know this to be fact, but one article says that it is still pegged to the dollar, and then another article said that they let it go. I don't know the facts. If any of you do know if that actually is fact or if that's just disinformation or misinformation, but I'm getting mixed views.
Yeah, from what I've read, Chris, there was never an actual formal agreement in place. There's nothing that lapsed. I actually read that a lot of that was kind of put out and trying to be spread by the crypto people because, their ultimate goal is to say, oh, the dollar's completely not worth anything and debased and, everybody needs to go to Bitcoin, or whatever. And so I think there was a lot of that and why that started to spread. But, we've been hearing about it for the last several years now, how, there's, Russia, they're starting to buy oil with Russian rubles or whatever the case, Chinese yen, whatever it is. So that's what I've been kind of reading. There was some misinformation, some truth kind of, if that makes sense.
Yep, it does. I'm just reading a bunch of articles here. So I think everything I'm reading, it's mixed. It's mixed. Some say it's still being traded in US dollar by Saudi. Some saying, that they're starting to trade in others. Others are saying that they just aren't trading in US dollars. So I more on that later with the show, but that is a really important thing. Now, let me put another thing out there. So the US dollar is not backed by anything, but no currencies are backed by anything right now. So when you look at currencies throughout, like you got the Swiss, you got the Swiss in Switzerland, like their currency is very strong. Okay, the US dollar is very strong in relation to other currencies. So when you start thinking, because I know this whole Bitcoin thing, and listen, I like Bitcoin. I think it's got a future. I think blockchain's going to be the future. But, when everybody starts saying the US dollar is going to go to zero, it's going to be worthless. It's going to be like the German franc. I think if I'm saying that right, not the franc. What is German's money? Anyone? I'm just confusing them all. But anyway, like
the euro. The euro's in Germany.
Yeah, but no, like back in the day, was it the franc?
Yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. But here's the thing.
Dutch mark.
The what?
The German Dutch mark.
Dutch mark. Okay. So the US dollar isn't going to zero. I can tell you that for fact. Okay. The US dollar is still going to be the premier dollar or currency used in world trade, because right now it accounts for 60%. So I know people get their panties in a ruffle when they hear about Saudi Arabia not trading in dollar and, the BRICS and Russia and all that. Listen, of course, Russia is finding other ways to do this because we basically cut them off, So when you're thinking about that, just really look at who you're getting the information from. If it's someone, who's really pushing something with Bitcoin, like a training program, a coaching program, maybe just look deeper for information. I'm not saying some of it's not true, but it's going to be a long time before the dollar is taken over by another currency. Even if the BRICS did get their shit together, come together, put all their currencies together, they still are probably, I don't know, a decade away from even being able to rival the dollar. There's no other currency that's as strong as the dollar, and I mean not even close, or at least any of our rivals. So I think it's important to watch. I think it's important to really pay attention to it. But is it one of those things where you all of a sudden just get rid of all your dollars and start buying gold and silver? It's not a gold and silver, just so you know. It's great bartering. It's good to have it. I own a bunch of gold and silver. Steven owns a bunch of gold and silver. But really, just when you look at your portfolio, precious metals should really not be more than 10% of your holdings. That's just smart, okay? Because it's just not easily traded. Okay, it's not readily traded. It's not like you can go to the grocery store with a gold coin and pay for your groceries. They'll be like, do you have a credit card, a debit card? You got Apple Pay? You got, dollars? So when you're really thinking about it, be careful on how you react to some of the news. And I would just tell you that we've got a long time before you need to really worry about the dollar coming off the pedestal and the dollar not being able to be a means of exchange for you, especially if you live in the U.S. That's my take on that. Stephen, I know you might have a little different spin on what your thoughts are with the dollar, but let's hear your side of that.
No, that's it. I mean, you're spot on. I mean, the dollar, people send me stuff all the time, like, oh, what do you think of this or that? Or, is this going to take over? And no, I don't believe so in any way. It's just, I haven't seen anything that would even allude to that within the next, at least couple decades. I mean, things move slow, and it's definitely, in my opinion, not crypto or Bitcoin anytime in the near future. But I know a lot of people that are buying Bitcoin thinking at 60,000, it's a great buy, and they think it's going to go to $150,000 later this year or next. And I hope it does. I mean, by all means. I think we're at 65 right now today. Just not my thing, Chris. That's all. It's not my thing.
But I agree. It's something to pay attention to. There's been a lot of things that have happened, in an effort to kind of dethrone the dollar, and, more to come on that later, I guess is what I would say. But let's talk a little bit. Let's go back to Russia and the nuclear sub. So, it's interesting. We've got a bunch of, military vets and current military that watch these shows. And thank you to all of you for your service. And to some of you, people that gave the ultimate sacrifice to protect our freedom, which to me, freedom isn't free, and freedom is definitely fighting a really hard battle here in the United States right now. But Morgan came on and said, having served on a nuclear sub, they do not need to be close to hit any target on the earth. Russia is just saber rattling. I couldn't agree with that more. So like all that news you saw about Russia and people were getting nervous and is this going to be are they going to attack us? No, they're just rattling feathers. That's all they're doing. And Putin's a pretty smart guy, but I have to believe, I know he's crazy, but I have to believe he does not want a nuclear war. I just think he's trying. Who knows what game he's playing right now? Clearly, maybe a little bit better one than Uncle Joe is, but I don't know. I'm not going to go there with that. It's just we need some changes here in the United States. And listen, I'm not sitting here saying vote for Trump, but I'm certainly saying, if you're voting for Biden, what the fuck rock are you living under? And listen, like Kennedy's a good option, but if you really think things are really good in this country, and if you really think Biden's a good president and doing good things, please send me a report showing me why factually you think he's doing a good job. Because there's just no freaking way I can get on board with that. I can't. I know too much. I've seen too much. I've studied too much. He will go down as the worst president ever in the United States of America. And if I piss some of you off, good. Because last time I checked, this is our show, not yours. We can say what we want, but I got to tell you, even though that's my opinion, that's about as factual as it's ever going to get. And in history, in the future, we're going to look back and you will see that is absolutely true. But with that being said, let's move on. I had a couple more things I wanted to hit here before I lose my my thought, which I already lost my thought. Damn it, Stephen. Take over here while I figure out where I was going with this. I had something important too. Well, I mean, here, Pennsylvania Waste Management, this is stupid, but Pennsylvania Waste Management collects millions of dollars worth of tossed out coins. So just so you know, why are we failing so much financially in this country? We're giving our coins away, man, millions of dollars. So anyway, stupid information, but filler.
I did see the Bank of England is expected to hold rates high, even though inflation, they've been able to get inflation down to its target rate of 2%. So kind of interesting, because I think you were saying earlier that there's some countries that are lowering rates to try and pressure the U.S. Is that what it was? But
yeah,
that we see and we've always heard, the whole world has high inflation and nobody can control inflation. Well, looks like the Bank of England has been able to accomplish that. So maybe it does have something to do with our policy and our spending here, but nonetheless, looks like they might try and hold rates high. So that's interesting.
Dennis said, oh my God, you went there. Yeah, sometimes you just got to kick it in the nuts, right? Like just how it goes. Oh gosh, lots of great comments coming in from YouTube. But the one thing I did want to bring up is, and I don't know this, I saw this, but was there something signed or something done that basically makes it so, like, was it 18 years old? Where did I just see that? The draft. 18 to 26. So that all males are registered, in the draft from 18 to 26. Did you see that, Stephen?
Yeah, I think they did something where it's an automatic registration.
Yeah, automatic registration.
Yeah, I don't fully understand it, but
I mean, that would make us like most other countries, but again, then it makes you take another step deeper and start saying, well, why? What do you
good
know that I don't know?
good luck enacting a draft in this country for 18 to 26-year-olds.
Yeah.
Good luck getting these spoiled kids to go serve in the military. It's not it's not 50 years ago, man. It's a different people right now. And you talk about civil war and an election causing a civil war. No, but you try and get a lot of these young kids to go fight a war for you. You're going to see a lot of pushback, in my opinion. So
I agree.
I don't know what that automatic registration is, but good luck with it.
I'm just trying to read here some of the things that we've got, but we got a mess. That's what we've certainly got. But in the chaos, the one thing I will say, there's always opportunity in chaos. And as we go into the latter part of 2024, we get closer to the election, crazy things are going to happen. President Trump's probably going to get sued a couple more times and be found guilty, and probably because he gets found guilty, probably raise more money and get more popular. And it's a crazy dynamic of things going on out there. Just to watch both of these candidates go out and hit the trail and start really doing what they're doing. And I don't even know what to make of half of it, and I just ignore most of it. But, I try to focus on the fundamentals of what's going on in the country and what's going on in the economy. And in doing that, the one thing I will tell you, and this is a really important thing that you guys can all take to the bank, is the worse things get, the more opportunity all of you are going to have if, and I got to put a big if, you are prepared. If you are not prepared, if you are one of those folks that are living off of your credit cards to try to maintain a standard of living that you got used to during the pandemic or shortly after the pandemic when money was easy, if you are racking up your credit cards to try to impress people with the things that you have and the watches and everything else, I see it every day. I was just in Bahamas at the Baha Mar and walking around. I couldn't even count the number of people wearing Versace and Louis. I don't even know the names of these brands. My wife does. Louis Vuitton and Gucci. And like head to toe wearing this shit. And I'm just like, where do these people get money? And then I'm like, wait a second. They don't. They just use credit cards and say, I'll pay it later. That is exactly how you'll fail. You want to know how to succeed and how to fail in this next couple months, this next year? Debt. That's how you're going to fail. Carry debt into this period, carry debt into a declining economy, and you will fail. Go into this economy flushed with safe cash assets, treasury bonds, treasury bills, money, and whole life insurance, like you always hear us talking about, especially design whole life, that is. Go into that with the attitude and the knowledge of how to be the bank and how to control your money. And I'm going to tell you, the worse it gets, the more money you're going to make. The worse it gets, the more opportunity you're going to be able to take advantage of. The worse it gets, the higher up the food chain you're going to climb. And I'm not saying that's good, bad, or indifferent. I'm telling you that's fact. So take it really serious. We are in June of 2024. You're running out of time. If you are racking up credit cards, if you are out there spending money, if you're getting a bonus and you're just spending it all, if you're getting a raise and you're spending it all, just trying to live the best life you can because, hey, you don't know if you're going to live till tomorrow. Well, when tomorrow comes, and your plan failed because you thought, I don't know if I'm going to live till tomorrow. I'm going to live for today. And that's like seems to be the new way that kids are living. You're going to learn some really, really hard lessons. But hey, we've all had to go through it, right? We've all had to learn hard lessons. I've almost lost it all. I've almost gone bankrupt. I've been at the bottom, and I've seen and learned how to not go there again. And that's the difference between the rich and the wealthy, right? You can look rich, just go out and buy some Louis Vuitton and walk around Baha Mar with your fancy bags, your fancy shoes, your fancy shorts. I didn't even know those companies made shorts. They're damn ugly, but that's just my opinion. And the $600 glasses. I walked into a couple of those stores there. Like, who in their right freaking mind pays? There was belts, men's belts that ranged from $600 to as much as $5,000. I'm just like, are you freaking crazy? Why? Because it's got this little fancy logoed buckle. The next time I see somebody wearing one of them belts, I'm going to stop them and be like, are you out of your minds? Are you just stupid? Or did you get dropped when you were a child? Like, it just makes no sense. I don't care how much money you have. Why would you ever do that? Why wouldn't you understand that the universal laws, if you give, you get, and the universal laws, if you solve enough people's problems, you will have your problem solved? Wouldn't you just take that $6,000 you'd spend on the stupid belt and give it to a charity to solve some problem for someone that needs help, or some animal, or whatever your cup of tea is? Because that definitely put you in a better place than buying that stupid belt, those stupid shorts, those stupid shoes, those stupid bags. Anyway, I'm going to get off my little tangent there because, but it's just, I saw things at the Baha Mar and it made me first think, wow, is there really that many wealthy people? And then I started thinking, no, there's just that many stupid people living off credit cards, because that's what me and Steven talk about every day, is how much people are living on debt. And I saw it firsthand. I guess I just don't get out very often, Steven. But anyway.
Oh, I live in South Florida. I see it every single day. It's mind blowing.
I see it here in Buffalo too. I just don't go out in Buffalo at all. I just kind of live in my own little bubble sometimes. But
I got one last thing before we close up. Just a few sports announcements, since I always like to keep everyone updated on sports. So congratulations to Bryson DeChambeau for winning the U.S. Open. I think he's one of the coolest golfers right now. There's a really neat video of him the day after hanging out with Eric Trump and a bunch of people, literally pouring beer into the U.S. Open big trophy and just chugging it down, celebrating, having fun. So Bryson DeChambeau's worked his entire life since he was a little child to be one of the best golfers in the world, and it's kind of cool to see it happening. He's starting to win some tournaments, and he went over to live. And then we have the whole Rory McIlroy is the leader of the PGA Tour, and people like Bryson now kind of leader of the Live Tour, and they get together at these majors, and it makes for a really fun tournament. Sorry to Rory McIlroy, who seems to just completely fold and break under pressure and can't make putts when they're needed at the end of a tournament. So congratulations to Bryson DeChambeau. The Florida Panthers are now up in the Stanley Cup 3-2 after coming out to a 3-0 lead and dropping the last 2 games to the Edmonton Oilers. So it's best of 7. We'll see if Edmonton can pull off the comeback, or if the Panthers can claim their very first Stanley Cup. I think you guys know who I'm rooting for in that one. Let's go Panthers. I wanted to say rest in peace to one of the greatest baseball players of all time, and Willie Mays. Willie Mays passed away yesterday at 93 years old. Was one of the best baseball players in history, and one of my idols when I was a kid growing up. So sorry to see him go, but an amazing life. And last I wanted to mention, we've been watching the U.S. Olympic trials. Anybody else watching those? The Olympics kick off at the end of July. So we have the trials going on right now, something to keep an eye on. One of the insurance companies we use for infinite banking, One America, American United Life, One America is one of the handful of sponsors for the United States Olympic swimming team. So thank you to One America for sponsoring a great group of young people, and go USA in the Olympics. That's all I got.
All right. Well, since you covered all the mainstream sports, I feel compelled to talk about the sports that I love to watch. There was another record that was set by a 9-year-old, and I'm going to say his name wrong, but Ema Kawakami, or Kawakami, Ema Kawakami. We're going to go with that. He lands for a record 3 consecutive 900s in front of Tony Hawk, the first 900. So setting records, but now we're setting records with 9-year-olds, man. Shit is getting crazy in the skateboarding.
That was a badass video. Actually, I sent that to a buddy of mine yesterday.
Wild, man. 9 years old. Like, if any of you have a 9-year-old child, or you know somebody that does, just look at them and be like, they're doing 900s back to back.
You got to watch it.
Yeah, we're going to play that, and that's what we're going to wrap on. So
even if they're repeating them, because right now we're seeing a lot of bails.
All right.
This guy is.
We going 3 900s right now. One.
It's like, yeah, here's my best trick.
2.
He's at 18.
Oh, he's got it. He's got it.
There we go. History of the making.
The thing that a lot of people don't understand, like, first off, a 9-year-old doesn't weigh a lot. So, like,
little dizzy.
keeping speed.
Look at this kid, though. Look at this kid. Just what a stud. Look at that.
Back to
Wild.
How cool is that?
Like a little kid like that on a vert ramp. I used to skate vert. Like, to keep speed after doing a trick like that, you got to land really high on the tranny, and you got to know how to pump that. And weight makes a difference. Like, if you're bigger and heavier, you can go faster. Do you see the amplitude he kept on every one of those 900s? Like, his height above the coping, which is the top of the half pipe. That's crazy. I would have said that's impossible, but it just happened. But that's cool. So with that being said, folks.
On that though, Chris, they actually do have surfing for the first time ever in the Olympics this year. So
it's gonna be wild. I
be
can't wait.
Fun to watch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
surfing is like a whole nother level now. But anyway, folks, we're just hitting the news, hitting some fun things. Thanks for joining us. This was a lot of fun. I loved your comments coming in from TikTok and YouTube and Facebook. You guys are just awesome. And it was such an honor to be able to stream and figure the technology out to stream on Instagram. So thank you, everybody on Instagram. Ton of fun today. Join us this afternoon at 1 p.m. Eastern for Wealth Webinar. We're going to be talking about privatized banking and the infinite banking concept, but I'm going to be showing you something that'll blow your mind, and it will make you question everything and anything you've ever been told about whole life insurance policies. I'm going to blow your mind. Join us 1 o'clock. If you don't know how to, just register by going to chrisnaugle.com, and you'll see it right down, a couple index finger scrolls. Register for the Wealth Webinar. It's totally free, no restrictions, and you get a bunch of stuff for free. With that being said, folks, thanks for joining us for another episode of What the F Happened. We'll see you next time.